Servus und willkommen zurück hier bei Lamplight City. Die gute Constance hat uns eine Nachricht geschickt. Genau, hier. Es geht um einen dringenden Fall, also schauen wir mal, worum es geht.
Hello, Upton.
I'm glad you came, Fordham. Sorry for disturbing you this late.
Kein Thema. Kein Thema. Oh ja, genau.
Shouldn't a respectable young lady like you be in bed by now?
Only if you want to add boring to your list of adjectives.
So, what do you got for me?
An infant kidnapping in Lyon.
Oh.
The report came in tonight just before my shift ended. The family wants to keep the investigation very low-key. They're afraid if word gets out, they'll have all sorts of ne'er-do-wells making false ransom claims. That's why I suggested they let you investigate first. Head over to 45 Belcourt Street. That's the home of Malcolm and Miriam Harris, the parents of the kidnapped boy.
Oh, wow. Kindesentführung. Gar nicht schön.
Harris, as in Harris Construction Company?
The very same, owned by Malcolm's father, no less. Now you see why they wanted to keep this out of the public eye.
Indeed. If they manage to get a new transatlantic airship off the ground, it'll be an aura mine. I can see why they'd make an easy target.
Nein, das wird, glaube ich, nicht so easy. Wir sind da mal etwas, wir halten den Ball flach.
Okay, I'm on it. I'll try and find him as soon as I possibly can.
Right. Good luck on your investigation. Come see me again once you've figured things out, or if you just need to talk. I'll be here all day tomorrow as well, so feel free to stop by.
Alles klar, der sitzt nur die ganze Zeit im Kaffeehaus. Unglaublich. Gut, wie sehen wir denn aus? Mit Harris Familie sprechen. Der entwendete Nachwuchs, Charles Harris, der kleine Sohn des Erben von Harris Bauunternehmungen, wurde entführt. Wer war der Täter und wohin hat er das Kind entführt? Und wir haben es lebendig wiederzufinden. So sieht's aus. So, dann schauen wir da mal hin, ins Vollbild. Zu dem Harris Herrenhaus.
Mr. Miles Fordham is here to see you, sir.
Very good, Mr. Havelock. Send him up.
Yes, sir.
Sehr geile Stimme. Okay.
Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Fordham. I'm Malcolm Harris.
I'm terribly sorry to hear about what's happened, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Fordham. You were very highly recommended by Miss Upton. She said you'd be able to solve this faster and more discreetly than the police.
Ich werde mich bemühen.
I admit it's a rather unorthodox approach, but we're desperate.
I understand. I'll do all I can to find the kidnapper and bring your son back unharmed.
If you'd like to examine the nursery, it's just through that door to the left. I'll ask you to please try and keep quiet as I just sent my wife to bed. Her nerves are rather shot, you see.
Yes, of course.
Kann man vielleicht vorher mal reden?
I have some questions for you, Mr. Harris.
No doubt you do, but I'm really not in the mood to talk right now. It's been a difficult evening, and I'm not certain I have it in me to answer your questions at the moment.
Fair enough, but I will need to ask you about the incident at some point.
Yes, that's fine. Just not now.
Okay. Sollen wir ins Schlafzimmer gehen?
Mr. Harris said his wife went to bed. Probably not a good idea to disturb her.
Das hängt ganz davon ab. Wer ist denn das hier?
I know the hand and waistcoat pose is supposed to look stately, but to me it always looks like the person is scratching themselves.
Okay, und das?
She looks like she's up to something.
Alles klar.
I'm sure the only location the Harrises care about is wherever they are at any given moment.
Gut, ja, dann schauen wir mal ins Kinderzimmer. Alles klar. Oh, eine Giraffe. Wir sehen uns einfach mal wieder alles an.
My friend Bunny. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want a giant imaginary rabbit for a friend.
Who knows?
Bear's picnic. Something about a group of giant human-like bears eating together in the woods is slightly unsettling.
Der versteht es einfach nicht.
Look at that. The kid has a toy chest. My sister and I used to have to keep our toys buried in the backyard. Of course, that is because the only toys we had were dead rats.
Ja.
A steam-powered bottle warmer. Certainly beats having to do it in the fireplace. Or in the case of my parents, over a barrel fire.
Ja, du bist so arm und hast nichts gehabt. Wir wissen's.
Some sort of fuzzy animal wearing a waistcoat. Charming.
Die Giraffe können wir gar nicht angucken. Ah, da hat wir einen Knopf verloren. Ein Luftschiff mobile.
Nice mobile. Custom made, too. There'll be no mistaking what family this child comes from. Yeah, the kidnapper left the child's blanket behind. There doesn't appear to be any trace of the silver spoon, though. That's odd. Why is there a loose button in the crib? Yeah, I'm no expert on children, but it seems like it would be dangerous to have around an infant.
Definitiv.
Ah, if only the flower shop burglar was as easy to find as this clue was.
Immer diese Suderei. So, haben wir hier noch was? Nö, haben wir nicht mehr.
Oh dear.
Was denn?
Ah, wonderful. The soporific has started working. Well done, Fordham.
Oh.
Now how are you supposed to... What's the word I'm looking for?
Instigate? Interrogate? I just had it on the tip of my tongue.
Perhaps it's time to call it a night.
Alles klar, das ist jetzt... ja. Mhm. Alles klar. Wir haben einen losen Knopf gefunden. Das sagt uns noch nicht so viel. Ich weiß jetzt nicht, was wir noch alles machen können.
Shh, it's time to sleep. So peaceful, so quiet, so comfortable. Quiet. I don't know what to say to that.
Ja, gar nichts.
So peaceful, so to sleep. That's interesting. But sleep.
Okay, wir können gerade nichts mehr machen.
No talking now. So peaceful. I don't...
Ja, okay, dann gehen wir einfach.
Well, Mr. Harris, I believe I've done all I can for right now.
Did you find anything?
Yes, I believe I have some leads I can pursue. But the most important thing to do in cases like this is wait to hear from the kidnappers. I'll be back tomorrow morning to continue my investigation and ask you and your wife some questions once you've had time to calm down a bit. In the meantime, I suggest you stay here and get some sleep. We'll all need it.
Okay. Und dann schlaft er im Sessel, oder wie?
Miles, wake up. It's nearly noon.
Ah, so it is.
Why didn't you come to bed when you got home last night?
It was late. I didn't want to disturb you.
So what was so urgent about the case Upton sent you?
I'm trying to track a kidnapped child.
Oh my goodness. That's awful.
Oh,
Yes,
ja.
the pressure's on, but I think I should be able to crack it.
Assuming you actually managed to get anything done at the Harris Manor today.
Well, let me know if there's anything I can do to help. Also, we've got company. Mrs. Delacroix is having her hair done here today, so please make yourself presentable.
You mean I'm not all ready?
At least do something about your hair. I do have a reputation to maintain after all.
What's
Alles
wrong with
klar?
my hair?
Do you really want me to answer that? We'll be here all day.
Gut, dann zurück zur Arbeit. Ah,
And then he said, "Oh, hello there. I don't believe we've met."
Mrs. Delacroix, this is my husband, Miles. Miles, this is Mrs. Delacroix.
Pleasure to meet you, madam.
Likewise, young man. Pleasure.
Is everything all right, Mrs. Delacroix?
Oh, yes, everything's fine. It's just that, well, you weren't what I was expecting, is all.
Keep your head, Miles. She may be a close-minded idiot, but she's just an old lady.
also so pixeltechnisch alles sieht jetzt gar nicht aus. Naja, egal. Okay, dann fragen wir einfach mal höflich nach.
What were you expecting exactly?
Well...
Now then, Mrs. Delacroix, what was it that you were telling me about Mr. Delacroix and his dogs?
Oh, yes. So, Harold came in and said...
Impressive. She got off pretty easy. I was expecting a repeat of the Parsons incident. You should give Adelaide a kiss on the way out, though, just to make the old bat feel extra uncomfortable.
Oh ja, wir küssen unsere Frau. Das ist gut.
Addie?
Not right now, Miles. I'm busy. We can talk once I finish with Mrs. Delacroix.
Ich wollte dich küssen. Naja. Genau, zum Kissen.
Goodbye,
Abschiedküssen.
dearest.
I look forward to your return, my love.
Oh, die ist so nett. Gut, dann schauen wir wieder zu...
Remind me, Miles, how is finding some rich people's kidnapped baby going to help us track down the flower shop burglar?
Ein Kind retten ist nie Zeitverschwendung. Ja, genau, das ist auch gut.
It's possible we might find a lead to the burglar during the course of this investigation.
Really, Miles? You really believe that?
Anything's possible, Bill. You remember how many times we encountered seemingly trivial matters which turned out to be important later on?
Well, if you plan on solving this case, you'll need your full wits about you.
What are you implying?
I'm not implying. I'm flat out telling you. You need to stop taking that soporific. Adelaide has been trying to get you to stop for months, and Upton already suspects something is amiss. Not to mention your little episode last night. Trust me, no one is going to want to hire the dullard detective.
Clever. Did you come up with that one all by yourself?
What are you going to do when the cases stop coming in? How long before you get put away in Riverview?
If I do get locked away, it'll be your fault.
Which is exactly why you need to get back to your normal routine so you can find the burglar.
Genau, ich will das nämlich auch, dass das nicht mehr nimmt.
All right, fine. I'll stop. But you know that doesn't guarantee we'll find the burglar any sooner.
Yeah, I'm aware, but it increases the odds significantly. Well, I'm glad that's settled then. I knew you'd see things my way eventually.
It's not as though you gave me much of a choice.
In time, you'll thank me. Probably not before the withdrawal hits, though.
Don't make me change my mind on this, Bill.
Gut, haben wir jetzt das Scheißzeug eigentlich... Ist es immer noch so da?
Mr. Fordham, you're back. Allow me to introduce my wife, Miriam.
Hello.
A pleasure, Mrs. Harris. I wish we could have met under better circumstances, but I assure you I'm doing all I can to find your son.
Thank you, Mr. Fordham.
Mr. Harris, has there been any communication from the kidnapper?
None at all.
Well, I'll have another look around, if you don't mind.
Gut, dann schauen wir uns einfach nochmal denn gestern waren wir ja da leider...
Miles, didn't you notice something a bit strange about the Harrises?
Quite a few things, actually. What are you referring to?
Their son was just kidnapped, yet they're each on their own side of the sitting room. Not comforting each other, not crying together. Nothing.
They're stuck-up rich people. Not exactly the type to show emotion.
Miles, you know I'm the most cynical person there is when it comes to their type. But this isn't normal behavior, even for snobs. This goes deeper than saving face. There's something going on between them. I think you should find out what.
Vollkommen richtig. Das stimmt eigentlich. Aber jetzt schauen wir uns mal genau hier um. Was haben wir denn da? Hier liegt nämlich noch mehr. Würde ich mal sagen.
Probably won't be another year or so before the child gets any practical use out of those blocks beyond putting them in his mouth.
Ja, aber die sind schon cool.
Be careful not to cut yourself, Miles. I don't think the Harris family has ever seen blood that isn't blue.
Was ist denn das? Zerrissener Stoff?
Interesting. This fabric looks as though it came from a garment of some kind.
Nehmen wir mit.
Huh. There's a small emblem sewn onto the side of this piece of fabric. It just says SS.
Somebody's initials, maybe?
Oh mein Gott, die SS war's.
Look, you can see the balcony extends all the way around the side of the manor.
That would make it rather easy for someone to access this window from the outside.
No evidence of what was used to smash the glass, though.
Naja, man kann zumindest schon mal sagen, dass es von draußen eingeschlagen worden, weil die Scherben drinnen liegen.
Look.
That would make...
No.
Okay, da ist nichts.
It looks rather flimsy. Let's not try sitting on it.
Gut, dann sehen wir uns mal draußen am Balkon um. Das stimmt, das ist ja ungewöhnlich, ne?
The Harris family certainly has. I wonder if they use the balcony.
Ich würde gern raus.
I know the hand and waist.
Ja, ist okay. Das Schlafzimmer. Ein Staubsauger. Ein Saugsäuberer, Entschuldigung. Bitte um Verzeihung. So, was haben wir denn hier alles? Hier haben wir nämlich jede Menge.
Fancy. Some poor servant's probably gonna get a flogging for leaving it in here, though. It looks like a pile of women's clothes. Must belong to Mrs. Harris.
Schauen wir mal.
There's a handwritten note among the clothes.
Mira, mein Schatz, ich muss dich heute Abend treffen. Wir haben uns viel zu lange nicht gesehen. R. Aha.
Nothing else here. Oh, another four-poster. The Harris family certainly makes no secret of their wealth.
Ja, okay, das ist jetzt aber nicht so das Riesendingens, ne?
Painting of the city. Probably the only time the Harris family sees any of the other boroughs. Wardrobes are usually always full of wonderfully dark secrets.
Ja, dann schau nach. Was haben wir denn alles?
An empty suitcase. One thing is for certain. Mr. Harris uses entirely too much starch on his shirts.
Stärke. Ich habe noch nie in meinem Leben ein Hemd gestärkt oder stärken lassen. Ich weiß gar nicht, ob man das heute noch macht.
One thing is for certain. Yeah, it seems like this is where Mrs. Harris keeps her unmentionables. I like the ones with the frills and the stitched cat.
Nice.
Paperwork and receipts. Nothing particularly interesting here. More lacy underthings. I wonder which Harris they belong to. Mr. Harris's color selection is almost as drab as yours.
Let's see if there's anything of interest in any of the pockets.
So, Mr. Harris is a fan of the ponies, is he? I'm sure that's not causing him any trouble at all.
Okay, ein Wettschein.
Mr. Harris.
Gut, dann haben wir alles.
Who in their right mind would need that?
Ja, nachschauen.
Let's see what we have here. A very poorly written letter addressed to Mr. Harris.
I don't suppose it's a letter of admiration.
On the contrary, the author seems quite upset.
Mr. Harris, mit einem R nur. Hier ist eine wöchentliche Erinnerung zu wissen. Voller Rechtschreibfehler, wie arg ich dich hasse, Hase. Hase, mein Hase. Wegen dich ist meine Frau tot. Meine Frau war wundervoll, Frau, und du hast sie mir genommen. Hoff, dich geht es auch so schlecht. Okay. Arthur Devins. Okay. Rechtschreibung ist nicht die Stärke, aber wir wissen schon nochmal zwei Dinge, außer dass das Kind entführt wurde. Die gute Mrs. Harris hat einen Lover und der gute Mr. Harris hat auch irgendwas auf dem Kerbholz. Dann sprechen wir mal mit den beiden.
I have some questions for you, Mr. Harris.
Yes, of course.
Das wird ja lange, ne?
Tell me everything you can about the kidnapping.
I don't know much. I was out last night while it happened.
Where had you been previously?
I was out with friends. My wife can verify the time I arrived home.
Wait a minute. I know this attitude all too well. This man is hiding something. Most likely from his wife. I doubt it's voices from beyond the grave, so the question is, what's his secret?
Ganz genau. Aber jetzt fragen wir mal alles, was mit dem Baby zu tun hat, und zum Schluss, nämlich taktisch klug, würgen wir ihm diesen wütenden Brief noch ein. Und dann schauen wir, wie er zusammenfällt, wie ein Kartenhaus. Oder so ähnlich.
I found this bit of torn fabric by the broken window. Do you know anything about it?
Looks like it came from a piece of clothing. Possibly a jacket.
Did the initials SS mean anything to you?
Maybe? I can't really say. You'll have to excuse me, Mr. Fordham. I've got quite a lot on my mind right now. If I can think of anything, I'll be sure to let you know.
Ja. Das Baby.
Tell me about your son.
Charles is a good boy. Very quiet. Miriam had wanted a child almost from the moment we married. You know how women are when they have their hearts set on something. I saw no need to rush, but...
Nice to know you're not the only one. Hey, Miles.
The The first 2 times Miriam was with child, she suffered some unfortunate accidents. She was devastated, as you can imagine. So when Charles finally came along, he turned out to be quite a blessing. I can't imagine what sort of depraved madman would take him from us like this. You must find him, Mr. Fordham.
I intend to, Mr. Harris.
Wir werden uns beeilen zu finden.
I found this button in your son's crib. Does it look familiar at all?
No, not at all. Do you think the kidnapper might have left it behind?
It's a distinct possibility.
Gut, jetzt noch über ihn selbst.
Tell me about yourself.
There isn't much to tell, really. My life has been fairly well publicized in the newspapers.
Let's pretend for a moment that I skip over the society pages.
Well, I'm an investor. My father Clyde runs Harris Construction Company, which I will someday inherit. Any other details about me are fairly trivial nonsense, I think.
Naja, wie war denn das mit dem Wettschein?
Mr. Harris, what can you tell me about these?
What? How did you...
Listen, I'm trying to help you and your family. I can't do it if I don't get the entire truth.
Erwischt.
Do you think we could discuss this somewhere more private?
I suppose we could.
Good. Let's move to the nursery then.
Alles klar. Das ist einmal jetzt nicht so die super tolle Ehe, würde ich mal sagen.
Shall we continue our conversation, Mr. Harris?
Yes, of course.
Now that your wife is out of earshot, tell me about the kidnapping and what these betting stubs have to do with it.
Right. As I said before, it had already happened when I got home. I had just come from spending the evening at the meadows.
I see. I take it your wife isn't impressed by your hobby?
I promised her weeks ago that I would stop going, but I've had such a good streak lately. The last thing I wanted was to upset her further, yet it would be foolish of me to just give up on something so promising.
Aha.
Can you think of anyone who might want to do you harm by taking your son?
Several, I'm afraid.
Go on.
I haven't exactly had the best of luck, Mr. Fordham. That's why this latest streak was so important to me. The truth is, I've gambled away most of my money. I've had to take out several loans so Miriam doesn't get suspicious. If she ever found out, it would be over. I can't lose her, Mr. Fordham. I just can't.
Where have I heard this before? You know, things would be so much easier if people just talked to each other.
I've tried doing business above board, but lately I've had to seek other resources.
What do you mean?
I was forced to visit a lending office. The owner was a rather shady Sambo, but I figured he'd be easier to deal with than the usual sheenies that run those type of places.
Can you believe this guy? Maybe we should just leave the kid be. He'd probably be better raised by wolves.
Who was the owner?
Mr. LeFay. I didn't bother to get his first name. His business is an abattoir row in Chumley. Horrid place, but I was desperate.
You think this Mr. LeFay may have taken your son as collateral?
Let's just say there isn't much those type of people wouldn't do to put a crown in their pocket.
Alles klar. Und wieder mal zeigt sich, schöne Fassade, nichts dahinter. Aber das war noch nicht alles, denn wir haben noch diesen wütenden Brief.
I found this letter in your bedroom. What can you tell me about it?
You went through our things?
Absolut.
I'm a private investigator, Mr. Harris. It's part of my job.
Of all the insolence!
You're upset, I know, but do you want me to find your son or don't you?
Yes, of course I do. That letter was sent to me by mistake. It was written to my father. Well, if you can even call that writing.
Have I ever mentioned how much I hate rich people? Because I really hate rich people.
Your father? Doesn't he own the company building the new airship?
Yes, that's right. He's been receiving many letters just like that one since the Ligeia disaster. But that Devons fellow in particular has sent one every week, along with a bag of chicken bones and dust.
How peculiar.
Not only that, he leads a daily protest in front of the construction yard where the HMS Lenore is being built, trying to halt production. My God! How did I not see this before?
See what?
Devons! He has a grudge against this family because of what happened with the Ligeia. I'd put money on him being involved with the kidnapping somehow, as a form of retaliation.
Ja, du solltest besser nicht
Mr.
mehr
Harris
wetten.
clearly hasn't learned his lesson about betting, it seems.
Ganz genau.
I'll just have to speak with Mr. Devons and see for myself.
Exaktamente. So.
How goes the construction of the new airship?
There have been some complications, but nothing we can't handle.
Could you be a bit more specific?
Well, I already told you about the trouble with protesters at the yard, and we're blocked pending Royal Maverick's review of the safety regulations for the prototype etheric diffusion engines. Agitators and red tape aside, we should still be on schedule to have the Lenore finished and in the air by the end of the year. But really, Mr. Fordham, what the deuce does this have to do with finding Charles?
He has a point, you know.
Man kann nichts
Those are all the
ausschließen.
questions I had for now.
All right.
Wie heißt so schön zum jetzigen Zeitpunkt?
If you don't mind, Mr. Fordham, I'm going back to the living room. I don't want Miriam getting suspicious.
Bla bla bla. Zum jetzigen Zeitpunkt können wir nichts zu den Ermittlungen sagen und wir ermitteln in alle Richtungen. So ungefähr klingt das doch immer, oder? Gut, jetzt die gute Mrs. Harris.
I have some questions for you if you're up to answering them, Mrs. Harris.
I'll try my best, Mr. Fordham.
Das machen wir dann zum Schluss.
Tell me what you know about your son's kidnapping.
Oh, my poor baby!
Mrs. Harris, I know this is difficult, but I need as much information as you can give me so I can bring your son back.
Yes, you're right. I have to stay strong. For Charles. It happened sometime between 6 and 8 last night. I think. Both my husband and I had gone out. Charles was in the care of his nanny, Mrs. Davis. I arrived home first, around 8:30, and that's when I found this scene in the nursery, as it was.
And what was it you found?
Mrs. Davis, unconscious in her chair, the broken window, and Charles missing from his crib. Malcolm arrived home shortly afterwards, around 9, and then immediately sent our butler, Mr. Havelock, to notify the police. We stayed up waiting for any contact from the kidnappers, but there was nothing.
Your husband mentioned he was out with friends last night. Where were you?
Oh, I was visiting with some of my friends. We gathered at one of their homes for a concert.
It seems hiding something from your spouse is an activity both Harrises partake in.
Definitiv, definitiv.
I found this bit of torn fabric by the broken window. Do you know anything about it?
No, I've never seen it before. Do you think it was left by the kidnapper?
Perhaps. Did the initials SS mean anything to you?
No, I can't think of anyone or anything I know with those initials.
Okay. Einen Knopf haben wir auch
I
gefunden.
found this button in your son's crib. Does it look familiar at all?
No, I don't recognize it. It looks like it came from some cheap coat. Is that what the ruffian who took my baby was wearing?
That's what I'm trying to determine.
Vielleicht war es ja auch eine Frau. Who knows?
Tell me about your son.
Charles is our only child. He's such a good boy. Never makes a fuss. Always very sweet. Oh, Charles, you must be so frightened out there without your mother. Oh, please, Mr. Fordham. You have to bring him home.
I'll do my best.
Also ganz im Ernst, natürlich ist das immer schlimm, aber die macht jetzt nicht so den Eindruck, so mit Kindermädchen und Butler, dass die so extrem viel in der Kindererziehung macht.
Can you think of any reason why your son would be a target for kidnapping?
It could be that someone wants our money, or some lunatic who's angry about the new airship. My husband's an investor, and my father-in-law owns the company building it, you see. I just don't know, Mr. Fordham. Frankly, the fact that something like this could even happen is just terrifying.
Also das mit dem Luftstift vielleicht, mit Geld brauchst du keine Sorgen mehr machen, du weißt es noch nicht. Ihr habt fast keins mehr.
What can you tell me about Mrs. Davis?
Well, she's worked for us since Charles was born, a little over 6 months ago.
How did you come to employ her?
Malcolm's mother had a friend whose daughter she used to care for. She came highly recommended. We've never had any problems with her. She's always been a dream.
Where is she now?
In her room, I would guess. With Charles missing, there's little for her to do.
Where might I find her room?
There's a small building just around the back of the manor. Hers is the 4th door from the left.
Aha, okay.
Tell me a bit about yourself, Mrs. Harris.
Mr. Fordham, my son has been kidnapped and is out there alone, terrified and confused. What could I possibly tell you that would make any difference to you finding him?
I suppose you're right, Mrs. Harris. My apologies if I upset you.
Echt? Dann werden wir mal schauen, wie sie jetzt reagiert.
I found this note in your bedroom. What can you tell me about it?
I've never seen that note before in my life.
Are you absolutely sure?
Mr. Fordham, you mentioned you valued discretion. I ask you to please exercise some now.
Would it be possible to speak about this in private? In another room, perhaps?
Out of the question, Mr. Fordham. I shall not leave this sitting room in the company of another man if my husband is not present.
Yes, I understand. Let's put the subject on hold for now.
What a life these rich people lead. All the money in the world and they're trapped like rats.
That's all for now, Mrs. Harris.
Der
Very well.
Welt. Der Geld der Welt. Das Geld der Welt. Okay. Also, viele Clues haben wir bekommen. Da läuft das ganz, ganz unkoscher ab. Wir werden nochmal zur Werft schauen, aber das werden wir in der nächsten Episode machen. Ich sag mal vielen Dank fürs Zusehen und wir sehen uns wieder in der nächsten Episode. Servus und bis bald.